Hi there. I hope you guys are all doing well. You know, many times we lose people in our lives that we love, and we often think about whether we're going to ever see them again. What happens to them when they go to the other side, where they pass on from this world to the next world. Now, I personally don't like to use the word death because it just has a very like a finality about it, which I don't like. So I normally say that people who we love have made the transition. Now, there are a lot of people who wonder what happens after death, and that's something that we don't have proof for at the moment. And when I talk about proof, I'm talking about empirical proof. I'm talking about proof, the kind of proof that scientists consider as proof, modern day science. However, there are a lot of people who have been able to give us information about what happens after death. People who have had near-death experiences, people who have been hypnotized and have given accounts of what happened to them in their last life, in their lives between lives. There are a whole bunch of books that have been written about this topic. Now, the entire near-death experience phenomena was actually started by through the book Life Afterlife by Dr. Raymond Moody back in the early 70s. And a lot of people were declared clinically dead by doctors, by hospitals, and they came back to life. They came back. Their hearts had stopped beating for a few minutes, and then a few minutes later, their hearts started beating again. And those people had a lot of interesting experiences that they shared. Things like seeing their bodies while floating up on the ceiling of the hospital room or the operation room, and then seeing a light, seeing a tunnel, going through the tunnel, coming into a room full of light where they met their relatives and friends and who had passed on before them. And in fact, in such cases, some of them, they actually met some of the people that were apparently from their past life. So it's not just that you meet people from the life that you're just coming back home from. You apparently you do meet people who were close to you and your loved ones in other lives before that. Then they talk about having a life review in which they see and they actually experience and they feel experiences that they had during their lives, and especially those experiences where they were either very nice to somebody or they were mean to somebody. And if they were mean to somebody, they actually feel the hurt that person felt. And if they were nice to somebody, they feel the goodness and the happiness that person felt. And then this is followed by a visit to the Council of Elders. And many people have said that the Council of Elders is like a group of souls that are sitting on a semicircular table. And they're not really judging. They're more like counselors. They're counselors. They're talking about the life that was just lived and the things that they accomplished, the things that they did not accomplish as planned earlier before going into that life. Then they talk about how they can improve things in their next life. And then after that, there's a period where there's an actual life on the other side, which is our true home. So people have talked about living in homes, living with families, doing things that are interesting, not just, if you think that the afterlife is just floating around in the clouds and playing a harp, believe me, that's not what happens according to what we've heard and read. Apparently, it's a very structured world, just like Earth is. It's a very hierarchical world. You have different levels of souls, different levels of guides, different levels of angels, and things like that. People have talked about various halls there, the hall of wisdom, the library, the hall of healing, and so many different places that are there on the other side. And people actually work there. So if you were an artist or a writer, for example, or a speaker, or a person who enjoys making things, you're going to have enough opportunities to do that when you go back home, when you go back to the other side. Because another thing that I've read is that most of the inventions and discoveries that have happened on Earth were actually influenced from the other side. So people who are creative on the other side actually give inspiration to people on Earth who are creative and help them to create things. Then there's the whole concept about the senses. The senses are apparently highly enhanced on the other side, highly enhanced, and they get sort of mixed. So sight, sound, touch, everything sort of gets intermingled. So you can see sound, and you can hear light. All right, if that, it probably doesn't make sense to us, but that's what we've heard, that the senses get mixed up, they get intermingled. And the concept of time is not as how we consider it on Earth. The idea of past, present, and future is a very Earth-like concept. It's a very earthly concept. From what we hear in the afterlife, it's you call it an eternal now, or an eternal present. Some of the examples that people have given to try to explain that are they're interesting, but at least to me they haven't made full sense yet, but let me share them with you. For example, let's take on Earth a casino. If you've been to Vegas and you've been to casinos, there's a timelessness about it. When you walk into the casino, you don't see any clocks. You generally don't see any windows. It's all enclosed, and it's a kind of, you don't really know when you're inside the casino what time it is outside. You don't know whether it's day or night. You don't really sort of, you're doing things, you're experiencing things, you're playing games, or you're just hanging around, walking around, or whatever. But you don't really get the concept of time in a casino, because you're sort of in a state of mind of, you're enjoying yourself so much that time doesn't really seem to matter anymore, if you could put it that way. Another way of looking at it, another example given is like dreams. Like, for example, I'm sure all of you have had taken a nap for like half an hour, and in that nap you have a dream, and when you think of it, the dream may have seemed that you were doing something for many hours, or days or months, but when you wake up you realize that only 30 minutes have passed, or 20 minutes have passed in earthly time. And then you sort of wonder, like, I did so much, I saw so much, and I experienced so many things. And how is it possible that all that happened in just 30 minutes? So, time is very different on the other side. It's a different dimension. It's like if you are watching TV, you're watching, for example, CNN, and then you change the channel, say you're watching BBC. Now because you're watching BBC doesn't mean that CNN has stopped happening. It's still happening, but it's happening in a different frequency, right? That's what basically what a TV is. It catches on to different frequencies, and that's all the channels really are. It's that they're different frequencies with different things happening. So when you're watching CNN, BBC is still happening somewhere, though you're not tuned into it, so you don't really, see it or hear it. Now, but when you change the channel, you're now watching BBC, but CNN is still happening. It hasn't stopped happening just because You're not watching it anymore. So that's kind of like what happens when people make the transition. The earth and the life that we have on earth could be considered like a particular frequency of existence. And when you make the transition, you're basically just sort of changing channels. You're now focused on a different reality, a different frequency, different things that are happening, and likewise, earth doesn't stop happening just because you've gone to the other side. In the same way, just because you're on earth doesn't mean that things aren't happening on the other side. Okay, so I cannot prove this to you in terms of empirical science, but I can tell you I've had some interesting experiences in my life. And just like, if you try to explain to somebody what an apple tastes like, you cannot. You can say it's sweet, you can say it's juicy, you can say it's sort of crunchy, but you cannot really tell a person what an apple tastes like exactly. All right, none of our modern science can do that. I don't think any scientist in the world can explain to a person exactly what an apple tastes like unless the person tastes it. So there's certain things in life that we just have to experience. Okay, we just have to experience that. You can't explain. Like another example is, how do you explain the color red to a person who was born blind and has absolutely no concept of light or color? So there's certain things that are just beyond explanation. They simply have to be experienced. Our human eyes and our human ears were only designed to see and hear particular frequencies. Just because we can't see things or hear things doesn't mean that they're not existing. It's just that our human eyes and ears are not tuned into that frequency. And when we make the transition, our spiritual eyes and our spiritual ears are tuned into that frequency, and therefore they can see and hear what's going on, and then that becomes their reality. So I know everybody in this world has lost a loved one. I have, a lot of people have, everybody has, and you feel really bad and you feel that you're not going to see them again. But all I can tell you is this: you are going to see them again, because someday all of us are going to make that transition, and we are going to be with our loved ones again. We are going to survive beyond death. So please never feel afraid of that. Never think that when a person is gone, they're gone forever. They're not. You are going to see them again. You are going to live with them again, just like you were on earth, and it's going to be a lot better, because on the other side we can do a lot more things in a much cooler way than we can do them on earth. You can travel instantaneously. You can have multi-location, so you can actually be having a conversation with someone and simultaneously having a conversation with someone else, or traveling, or doing different things, or observing a loved one who's still on earth. Now we can understand these things with our limited human mind, but these are what happens. There's multi-location or locational powers we have on the other side, and that is actually our true home. Every person who's had a near-death experience, without exception, and everyone who's had a life between life regression, has stated very clearly that where we go after we leave this planet Earth is our true home. You always feel that you're coming back home. Secondly, you always feel that you've done this many times before, so reincarnation is true. And apart from that, that is our true identity. That is our true existence. My favorite quote in the whole world is by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was a French Jesuit priest, and he said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." And if you really let that sink into you, it will change your concepts. It will change the way you look at life. If you realize without any doubt that we are spiritual beings in essence. That is our true identity. And we have come from our home in the spirit world to planet Earth in this physical human existence to have certain experiences that we have planned before we came here, much like you plan a vacation. Similarly, you plan your life on earth. You plan that you're going to experience this, this, and this. You are going to have this, this, and this disease. You are going to experience heartbreak or losing a loved one, or anything in life that happen, the things that happen to us. And you're doing it to experience and to learn and to grow from that experience. And that is why just be happy, live this life. You are here for a purpose. Find that purpose. Seek inside you. Look inside you. Ask God inside you, your Creator, to reveal that purpose to you. What are you here for? And remember the golden rule, of course, one is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But remember what the Lord Jesus Christ said about the most important commandments. He said there are 2 commandments, and everything else rests on these 2 commandments. And these are the 2 most important commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. These are your basic guidelines in life. To love God completely, love yourself, and love your neighbor. Because remember, love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say love your neighbor more than yourself. Or he didn't say don't love yourself. He said love your neighbor as thyself. As you love yourself. So 3 things remember. Love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. God bless you. I love you.